We want good things for the people of China. We have a Chinese Communist Party that is putting freedom and democracy at risk by their expansionist, imperialist, authoritarian behavior. That's the behavior that we're trying to see changed.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo taking aim at China following up on President Trump's latest action against Beijing over its treatment of Hong Kong. But the president's remarks yesterday quickly turned into a broadside against rival Joe Biden that went on far longer than the China announcement. For more on all of this, Karl Rove, the former White House Deputy Chief of Staff and Fox News contributor. Karl, you probably saw that yesterday. It looked like it turned into a campaign rally because the president has only been able to do one of those in the last few months. What did you think?
Well, the president's stronger when he's president. That's one of the great ironies about a president running for re-election is that they're always stronger when they focus most of their energy and effort and message on the things that they do as president. Imagine what it would be today if the president had been focused only on Hong Kong, only on China, had made the points about what he was doing to confront him, could have taken a sort of a glancing blow at saying my predecessors were not willing to undertake these tough steps, I am. That would have been the message for the day, but instead we had this 64-minute-long diffuse sort of pseudo-campaign event. Rule number one, if you're an incumbent president running for re-election, your most powerful presence is as the president of the United States. You have the biggest megaphone, the biggest platform, and you have the greatest ability to control the quality and content and direction of your message if you act in that way. Don't use presidential events as campaign events. Try and turn campaign events into presidential events.
Well, let's look at how he turned the presidential event into a campaign event. Here's a few snippets from yesterday.
Joe Biden's entire career has been a gift to the Chinese Communist Party. Joe Biden and President Obama freely allowed China to pillage our factories, plunder our communities, and steal our most precious secrets. Now Joe Biden is pushing a platform that would demolish the U.S. economy, totally demolish it.
That hour-long screed against Joe Biden prompted one reporter in the first question that the president took to ask the president if he was worried about his re-election. What, Karl, are the prospects for the president's re-election? How do they look now?
Well, first of all, let's examine that just a little bit more in detail. Let's give it an alternative vision. Let's say that those things that the president said about Joe Biden are entirely appropriate and good points. But what would have happened if yesterday had been the president focused on what he was doing as president? Today, the Secretary of State was out there and others were out there reaffirming what the president was doing and giving it more flesh and attention and so forth. And say later this week, Thursday or Friday, the president went to a manufacturing facility in Pennsylvania or Ohio or Michigan and delivered a political talk about his predecessors and what they were willing and unwilling to do. Well, this message would have been spread over several days, gotten more force and influence, been more likely heard by the American people, and the president would have started out by using his megaphone as president and then followed up by being a candidate. Much stronger. And as and look, he was a full-time candidate in 2016. He's now got a full-time job. And this is a difficult transition for any president. Well, it was for President Obama, was for President Bush, was for President Clinton. But if you successfully get that in your mind, that you're strongest when you are using presidential events to make news, and that you ought to be thinking about how you can turn campaign messages you want into presidential events, you come out of the process stronger. Where's the president today? He's behind. He may be coming back. I think the speech at Mount Rushmore gave him a little bit of a pivot point, but he's got a long way to go, and fortunately he's got a lot of time to do it. This is going to be a very strange election, John, unlike any one that you and I have seen, because of how the coronavirus is going to affect the tempo and the form and the function of the campaign. I'm writing about that tomorrow in my Wall Street Journal column. I hope you'll read it.
I definitely will. What the president was responding to yesterday was Joe Biden tearing a strip off of him earlier in Wilmington, Delaware. Here's what Biden said.
When Donald Trump thinks about climate change, the only word he can muster is hoax. When I think about climate change, the word I think of is jobs. When Donald Trump thinks about renewable energy, he sees windmills somehow causing cancer. When I think about these windmills, I see American manufacturing.
So Biden appears every once in a while, Karl, to give one of these big policy speeches in which he attacks President Trump. But it's been said that the longer Biden stays in the basement, the stronger he becomes because he avoids the scrutiny of the campaign trail. Our Peter Ducey, in 2 days in a row, tried to ask Biden questions, and he's like, sorry, got to go.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think the president has been put at a disadvantage by Biden hiding out in the rec room, because that means the entire focus is on Trump. And I think absolutely, this is one of the things I've got in my column tomorrow. We got to face the fact that we're not going to have a traditional campaign this fall where candidates are out on bus tours or have rallies, 4 rallies a day in hangars in different parts of states and regions. Yeah. We're not going to have that. And without that, we're not going to have the ability for the press every day to confront the candidate directly for questions and the candidate's key lieutenants. But again, how do you handle that? There was an attack made by Biden. He talked about his $2 trillion Green New Deal, and the response ought to have been, the campaign should have been ready to, in my opinion, ready to respond by maybe sending out the vice president and say, you know what, the idea that we're going to shut down every natural gas power plant, every coal-fired power plant, every oil-fired power plant in the next 15 years means hundreds of thousands of people will lose their jobs. The entire energy industry, we will lose the position that we have to supply less carbon-intensive energy around the world through natural gas by his policy to end fracking and end drilling on federal lands and in federal waters. This is going to cost the jobs. When he says the word jobs, what Joe Biden means is, I'm coming for your job and I'm about ready to raise your utility bill. That would have been far more effective than putting all of the burden on the President of the United States.
Hey, Karl, got to ask you one real quick question. We're almost out of time. The fact that Tommy Tuberville won yesterday, the fact that Ronnie Jackson won yesterday, does that prove that the president still has coattails?
Sure, absolutely, and Gonzalez in the 23rd District of Texas, another Trump endorsement who came from behind and is today 7 votes ahead in his runoff. Yeah, the president demonstrated his ability in Republican primaries to pull people across the finish line. All
right, we'll see how that goes as we head toward November. Karl Rove, always good to see you. Thanks so much.